Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today to talk about healthy leadership and how we drive change without burnout. The first thing I want to do, it's kind of the elephant in the room today. We're going to be talking about some concepts that we know, but I know that AI is going to amplify a lot that's going to happen inside our organizations over this course of time. So the first thing I wanted to check in with, how are we doing with AI in the room? And we have a range here that I like to use in a weekly forum that I run, where people really self-check. Here's where I am on this journey of AI that we're all already on and impacted by today. So just take a moment and maybe drop in the chat for us where you feel like you are on this scale. I love it. We've got a four coming out strong. I love it. All right. So we're somewhere, averaging out about a 3 and a 4, but it's good to identify the fact that we're, trying to navigate this and figuring out. And by the way, you're already ahead of a lot of people by showing up for things like this. I've been studying this and listening to podcasts and doing things. And one of the things that's been very validating is it's a world of, I don't know yet. And people are trying to figure things out. So the fact that you're here and learning is a part of figuring those things out. And I think it's awesome that you're already investing your time. So today, part of our healthy leadership series, of which there's 3 parts, I'll show you the next 2 workshops at the end. We're going to start with change without burnout. This is going to be key for company success moving forward. How do we prepare our leadership to be resilient in this time where everything is going to feel very accelerated? One of the things that's really important to me is that we don't lose our staff and our culture through this process. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Here is myself. I've worked for a very, very long time in tech and transformation and innovation labs and with AI. 9 years ago, I have been an agile coach and worked in agility inside tech for a long time. I've been an executive coach for 7 years. And I've worked all over the world with different kinds of tech teams. So really, really enjoy it. And I started this company with a partner, Compass, and I also work as a coach with AJO. So I'm loving that my worlds are kind of marrying now, and I can bring my full background and full self into my work. We have a company called Compass Rewire. We were originally looking at people making this transition of identity and having the courage to do a second act and kind of start over and what they have to learn and all these things. And we realized, oh my gosh, everybody's going to need a rewire because of AI. And we've really started to tie in this tech part and what we need to do as leaders and teams to be successful in this space. And we're partnering with AJO for this. Today, we're going to talk about a little bit of the current state. I would love for this to be very interactive. It's all about feeling safe. It's all about talking and having dialogue. So this is not going to be run like a webinar. And we're also going to ask you to, do a little bit of introspective work along the way and maybe share out what you're seeing out in the field or what you're experiencing at your company. So we want to have this as an open dialogue. And we're going to talk about what's happening now, and then also a little bit of a framework for how we can think about healthy leadership for change without burnout. Any questions so far? Okay. So as we look at the C-suite leadership, we always want to remind people that you're kind of the bridge between technology and humanity, and that we are going to need to embrace AI. We're going to need to have a clear vision. We're going to need to have empathy for people and clients and all these kinds of things, and have AI support our sense of purpose. So I just want to say it's a really strong, and for coaches as well, it's a really strong stance here to chariot people through this time and frame and create what this world will look like with AI. So we sent out an email that started off our campaign to invite you all to these workshops, and it talked about 4 AI realities that people overlook. And one is that if we don't, invest in our workforce readiness, things are going to kind of come at us a little bit, and we will get frantic, and we will possibly try to do things too quickly and have issues. And we just want to highlight that. I won't go into too much detail with all of these, but AI is different. It's an everybody thing. It's not going to be some silo in some part of the tech organization where they're going to throw a lot of money and then they're going to push out things. Everyone needs to learn from the ground up. Everybody needs their hands on it. So it's not just a tech or an innovation project. It's going to be something that's going to be a fully hands-on event, and that we're not really looking at just efficiencies and automation, but also augmentation. Who could I be? How could I service people? What could my life look like? How can we innovate and think about our business in a new way? And lastly, pretending like AI doesn't exist or it's not existing in this company. I hear a lot of times, even with some of my clients that I talk to, they're like, we're not allowed to use AI. And there's a whole AI department in the company. So this like ignoring the reality that people are going off and doing things and they're trying tools and they're doing stuff is not a good thing for leaders to do. We should be like kind of bringing everybody to the table and figure out what we're doing. In addition to this, there's 6 more that we promised we'd share with you when you got here. And then I want us to kind of chat a little bit about what's resonating. It's a very big risk management issue. Not doing something about it, ignoring it, not setting yourself up, not preparing your cybersecurity, not thinking about how compliance is going to work and the implications of even all of the things around you having AI. If you've chosen not to be a fast follower, ignoring these things could expose your company to a lot of different kinds of risks. And that could be reputation risk, it could be financial risk, and it could be really risk, right? Like the risk that keeps us up at night. It's not just about automation, it's about being better and being great. For me and how I use it as a coach, I get a lot more time thinking about quality things because a lot of the lift, I leverage large language models to help me take an idea to a larger brainstorming set and then narrow that down and create products. So I can spend more time on the fun parts. People will leave if your company is not embracing this because it's frightening. I was just sitting on a train with somebody and she works for a data company and she's like, we're not really coming up with solutions. And she's like, if we don't really have a clear vision on what we're going to do, I got to go. Because I know that there's other companies getting way ahead. And if I'm not learning and I am not being exposed to this, I'm going to be in a really difficult part of my career because I know that everybody in data is going to be expected to understand this. So there's this piece of this where you'll have people walk away if we want to ignore this. The other key is it's all around us, right? It's in the apps that we use. It's in your, I use QuickBooks for my business. For sure, they're using AI for stuff. So we're already integrated and we're already using things all the time that have this. The marketing emails that we're getting, how sophisticated those are getting. Like somebody's trying to have a conversation with me. I just got one that said something like, my sister wanted me to write you and says that we should have a coffee. And I was like, oh, what's this? And it's just some stranger trying to sell me something. So these things are getting good. They're sounding more like regular people. And so we already have it all around us. So there's not something to be as fearful about. This is going to be a big thing that's going to slow companies down in their adoption. But we've got to start. If you didn't clean up your data in 2016, it's time. Because as I was saying in the beginning, leadership things that you're struggling with that you have kind of left, that's the way they run their business and things like that. And data things that we haven't cleaned up and how we approach things, or if our company's very siloed, AI is just going to accelerate the problem. So it's just going to make everything kind of go faster and become more disparate. So that's a big piece of work for a lot of companies coming up. And then lastly, we can't ignore what our ethical and regulatory implications are of AI. Bias, privacy breaches. Just went to an amazing event and they had these fake breaking news events coming up on the wall that would like stop the panel would go black with lights, there's nothing on there, and then they would say breaking news, like these cameras they installed at this fake store called Mega Mart have now basically done something where they've isolated certain kinds of people as shoplifters, and so there's a bias that it's had. And so now people are like suing them for that when they were just trying to introduce something to try to catch shoplifters. But it was a real story. So it wasn't actually just made as like a fake story with a cover. But in the end, everybody knew which company was actually doing it. So we also, as we go to adopt these things and roll these things out, we need to think about how to do it responsibly. And as coaches and as HR, everybody's got a seat at the table to say, hey, wait a second, are our people protected? For whom could we fail? So there's a lot here that's going to be important. I'm going to stop here. I've covered a lot from the email. Bring in any comments or questions here.
One thing on the risk management side, I actually got it. We use at AJO, we use ChatGPT currently. And they sent me an email about an add-on that we can test, I guess, for like 2 weeks. And in the, like it described what it was, but what I liked about it was that you can't add this on unless your administrator approves it. So it wasn't like, I could just add it on. I had to request permission. And ultimately, the people, I guess, that run our 365 account decided, you know what, no, I don't think we're going to do it. We don't know if it's safe enough. So there are people out there that can help you if you're not sure about something or you want to add something, but you're not sure if it's right for you. Um, a lot of your IT companies are well versed in what they think would work for you. They made a couple of other suggestions, so we may look at some other options. But it was pretty cool that they were like, this may not be as safe, but maybe you guys can try this, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's a whole world here, and this is a little bit of the services that we offer. So I appreciate you bringing that up, which is how do you start to decide what platform to start? What's the minimally viable thing that you want to try out? What could actually help you out? We're not going to go too deep in that stuff today, but that platform selection, what's your checklist for your company? And then
Mm-hmm.
I think like on the tail end of that, a lot of it's about supervision and who's going to be in charge of that, who's going to make sure that that doesn't, start doing something it's not supposed to be doing in innocence as well. Like there's, ways that some of these large language models drift or they hallucinate, right? They're really narrowing that down so it happens less. But and it's going to become almost obsolete over time. But who's watching that? Who's surveilling that? Who's in charge of that? And it's going to create other kinds of jobs. So if we make Jill go faster, who's in charge of making sure that that works right, like, and is doing what it's supposed to be doing? Where's our technical documentation and what's our mitigation plan if something doesn't change it? Who could we fail if it doesn't work properly? Or where is that data being stored? So these are all questions and things that you want to kind of go a little bit deeper on as you're thinking about experiment. Thank you for the comment. What
Of
else?
course.
Marissa or Greg? Greg.
This is just a fun fact. My daughter works for Cencora. It used to be called AmerisourceBergen, and they, I guess, are taking the whole risk management issue extremely seriously. They have AI turned off internally for the organization and have developed their own, according to my daughter.
Yeah, there's a lot of people developing their own instances of things, and there's ways to firewall it. So there's products that you can have on the inside. Microsoft has a suite of products that can stay internal, and there's trade-offs for those. So they have like an instance that looks like, for instance, a Chat GPT, but it's from a year ago. So you can't ask what's going on with the Knicks right now, but you can, historically work on a lot of other things, and you still have all the access to the internet as of a timestamp, for instance. So there's different kinds of things that you can do, and then there's ones that might offer full privacy. But the key is that we all have to kind of learn about this, and that this is the new world, and we can't just like hide it. And I think it's funny. It's like turning AI off for sure. There's AI coming into the company in other ways. So through their accounting system and through if they're logging on to Workday is really leaning into those things. So they might be on HR tools that are filled with AI. So, but I understand, like when we talk about like what are we doing with our internal data, that's where people are like, I want to use a private instance of this versus something that might shoot my data out of this world. Great story, Greg, though. That's very helpful. This is good to explain. Who else? Any comments? Ready to move forward? Okay. So just, I'm going to do some framing here of what's going on, but, where we might see things adjust. are, having a lot of like in the short term, routine tasks being automated, diagnostic support in looking at healthcare, really the things that are tedious in our jobs. For sure, manufacturing is looking at a lot of robotic stuff. There's been really cool examples of how things are happening. I think one that I heard about moving these tires across the floor, which used to take a lot of people. Fleet management for transportation, probably a lot of stuff on inventory for retail and chatbots. I think a lot of customer service stuff is going to be coming out in helping, identify the right customers and the right experiences. The medium term, you're going to start seeing things get smarter. And that medium term is coming pretty quickly. So I would say in 12 months to 18 months, you'll start to look at, companies that give out loans, that will be kind of an AI driven decision, possibly looking at underwriting in different aspects, in finance and banking, other places where you might be making simpler decisions around lending and things like that. You're going to start seeing it come up. And then in healthcare, these apps that we're starting to see that are about like holistic care and things that happen for you. Autonomous vehicles are coming up for transportation. We're already seeing a lot of that. It's getting smarter and better. And then long term, these bankers and that old life of like, I want to, grow up and, move and get a job in Wall Street and stuff, probably not going to look the same, right? So we're going to have more people around ethics. We're going to be looking at what are other kinds of ways that we're making money in finance and banking. So we're going to see some changes and we're going to start seeing things move around there. Autonomous surgeries, we'll see how that goes. And I'm not sure if I would get a brain surgery right now with a robot, but there's definitely, they're thinking some of those surgeries, they're still going to have people, but I think there'll be other things that are more simple that you could do. And then fully self-driving cars and automated stores. This stuff is not that far away. This is like kind of like we watched, Back to the Future and things felt like they were far away. It's really getting close pretty quickly. And it's, how this AI is advancing as part of that. Hi, Gloria, welcome. We've just put in the chat the materials for today. So if you download that PDF workshop, and I just wanted to ask what business that you're in. Are you a coach or are you in HR?
I am a trainer in human resources.
Fantastic. And what industry are you in?
The retail industry. We have a supermarket chain.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. Well, welcome. And we're just kind of like setting the tone right now. So you're right on time.
Thank you.
Okay. So we talked about a rewire, and remember I was talking about people's second acts and encore careers, and that's where we did a lot of work, and we thought about how people needed to do these changes, and we realized, oh my gosh, like people need to do this in AI too. So I have taken the same plan that we thought about for our encore careers, since we're all embarking on an encore career now with AI changing so much about us. And I've even illustrated it by saying, right now, we're living our old life. And I think we're already starting to adjust and change depending on how much you've put yourself in an AI's mindset. So in this first phase, what we're trying to do, and I think everybody's having a little bit of trouble with this, is understanding the scale of the change. How big is this going to be and what is it going to do? And then what is my reaction to that change? So is this scary to me? Like a lot of people, like you're saying, Greg's like, turn off the faucet, like lock the doors. We're not letting this in, but we'll play with this one little thing. So that's assessing like, I've got a fear, I'm tentative, but I do want to try to touch it. So let me see how it is. So people need to assess what they're doing, but there's some people that are very cautious still. And we need to kind of see, how am I looking at this and what's happening for me? And I need to make a plan for myself and my organization in many cases. Today, or in this next phase, where some people are getting is like, what would AI look like for our business? And I think about that as a coach too. How could I make more Samantha time for me to be a coach and time for me to create and do the things that I love with being in front of people and working with people, and minimize tedious tasks and things for myself. And then also, how could I maybe get more of my products out? What could I do to talk to people or scale myself, right? So but companies need to think about what's their common vision for that as well. Bringing people along on the journey versus like dumping people and then hiring the people that have AI are going to be important for your cultures and your businesses. engaging in learning across the organization is going to be key, and making this safe and comfortable for everybody. Instilling agility. A lot's going to be changing rapidly in the marketplace, and for our company to stay sane and in business, we also have to be agile ourselves. And then we want to balance that tech, humans, and growth part, right? And one day we're going to have a totally different rhythm to how we work, and we're going to have learning built into every single day. It's going to be a different kind of mindset, and then we'll be evolving with agility. So this is what I see as kind of us moving towards thriving in this next chapter of where we're going to be. And these are a couple of points we're going to hit today. So assessing our own reaction a little bit, creating a plan for ourselves and our organization, bringing people along on that journey. We're going to touch on that a little bit, not entirely. The workshop series will end up touching much of this. And then balancing tech, humans, and growth. Any questions about this? Anybody feel like we're missing something big? Okay. So here's the level set. We are living through the most accelerated period of technological change in our lifetimes. So this is way beyond anything that we've ever seen. And it's hard for us to even understand the scale of it. It's like an ant standing next to a person. And it's already shaping and reshaping how we're making decisions, how work is getting done, and then which roles will stay, which ones are going to evolve, and which ones will possibly disappear. So I have plenty of stories about how people have evolved. I'll build that into some of the conversations that we're having. And some things will stay, but possibly you'll 5X yourself or 10X yourself, or like I was saying before, I can do more things that Samantha wants to do and less of the tedious things that are definitely not fun about having your own business, right? And some roles will disappear. And some of these things are simple things moving something from here to here, maybe making simple decisions, those kinds of things. But sometimes there's ethics around that. And sometimes there's a risk person that needs to watch that. So there'll be evolutions as well. Any comments about this? I would love this is Gloria, the one thing you missed, very safe space. I want you all to feel like this is a forum where we're kind of going to have discussion, and we're going to do some activities and stuff together. So any thoughts so far? Anybody feel like, oh my gosh, this lady's crazy. It's not going to move this fast. Still with me? Okay. All right. So the part that everybody, I feel like, is glazing over, and especially with this company that I just went to go see talk about all their new technology. It rhymes with Microsoft. They are kind of glazing over the people part. And this is not just a tech revolution. It's only going to work if people recognize this is a human revolution. This is a big change for us. And leaders are going to get told to move faster and automate more and retrain their workforce so that they can work in a different way. But people are not really paying attention to what's happening to the people. We still have paleo brains, right? We're still what we were 30,000 years ago in many ways. And what is this doing to people's energy to have to like shift around so much and think about new ways of working? What's it doing for our trust? Is my company going to do this the right way? Am I going to be taken care of? Am I okay? Do they care about me? And how do I focus in this situation? How can I stay resilient as things are changing? I don't care how anybody says it, and I'm for sure the coaches know this on here, and I'm sure you all know it in your HR organizations, but people are very attached to the way that they do things. They're very attached to their seating plans. Remember, I don't know if you've ever had a seating change, but when you move people's chairs around, it's like a bunch of hubbub for like a month straight. So, thinking about how we protect that resilience as we push change is going to be important. And how do we lead in a world where we can't really say exactly what the world's going to look like? There's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, right now in this world, every single time I look at my phone, there's something kind of crazy going on. And I'm very uncertain. I couldn't tell you exactly where the world is going to be in 6 months from now, because I couldn't have guessed that it would have been here today. And how can we create safety for folks and make them feel safe in a world that's a little bit uncertain? And this is like much more existential than just the AI changes that are coming. Any comments about that? Everybody feeling that uncertainty? You can give me an emoji or just say yes. I'm getting some nice comments over here. Seems a lot of resistance. How can companies deal with that? I was a non-believer for some time, not anymore. Y'all are feeling it, not me, but I definitely see it. Okay. All right. And I'm definitely probably I'm going to be talking about some of the stuff about some of that resistance and what we do about that. And I even have another workshop that's like almost entirely about that because it's about fear. It's about fear of change. So it's a good question. Okay, so we hear like, oh, you got to be agile, you got to be resilient, you got to be innovative and stuff. But behind the scenes, people are tired. And I know everybody's kind of seeing some of the stuff. We've got reorgs, but it's not really telling us like, where are we headed after this big change where all this stuff is going to be doing? A big trend about a year ago was people getting like double titles last 18 years, 18 months, 2 years. 2 titles, you're the comms this and you also run this. So people are getting all these reorgs, they're getting change without like, why are we changing? What does this mean? What is this a part of? And then speed, like go faster, but like for what? Like to what end? And I hate to make this look so dramatic here, but when I saw this emoji guy, I was kind of like, this is what it feels like. It's like run as fast as you can, but you also feel like strapped. I felt like this was like a really good, and then like also, I don't even know where I'm running or why. And I think like that's one of the things, like, let me get this done really fast. And it's like, for what? I don't really know what it's doing. If you want them to stay engaged, right? You're leading people through this disorientation. You want to have them stay engaged. They need somebody they trust to like walk with them and explain to them what they're doing and what they're doing. This is what we're going to have to kind of push leaders for. So, 3 in 5 people, they don't understand what AI is going to do their jobs, right? And they're not doing anything about it. Also, they're hiding from it. This is kind of what Prabha was bringing up. And then, am I saying your name correctly, Prabha? Okay. And then let me look at Gloria's comment. So if we're going to use AI and we need to explain what is we expect them to do with the extra time, how to add value with their uniquely human skills and use AI for the stuff that is good. Yes. Yes. And that's one way to sell it. And we'll definitely talk about that too, which is my husband works in the creative industry and I'm going to use him for a couple of examples as well, because they're scared their creativity stuff is going to get taken away from them. And so the way he sells it is talking about automation, not and augmentation, not taking people's jobs away. And I think that that's important. And I have like a little slide on that soon. So I would like to hear for everybody that's even a coach and you feel that with a client or a set of clients or in your 2 organizations for Gloria and Marissa, what's a sign that you feel when burnout might be starting to show up on your team or on the teams that you support or on the clients you support? Y'all feel free to just talk in.
Would say, this is Gloria, I would say disengagement. People just start to just tune off and they're not as engaged. They don't share their opinions as much. Um, they're just not as connected to the business as they used to be because they feel too much. And if I have an idea, then it becomes my job to make it happen. So they're just spectators.
Yeah.
Gloria, I was gonna say the same exact thing. The disengagement and when people kind of just start going through the motions only. They're showing up, still coming in, but that fire is not there anymore. They're just kind of like,
Yeah, this is Prabha, and I just wanted to say that usually this starts off as fatigue, physical fatigue. People are just tired all the time. They don't want to come to work, they don't want to show up. So lots of physiological symptoms before the actual mental fatigue sets in.
Yeah. We had a really lovely coach at AJO named Dr. Debbie Godfrey do a segment for us a couple of years ago after COVID, which was about Adam Grant's article about languishing. And it was really insightful because you have a group full of coaches who are empaths and healers, right? Who are supposed to really know themselves so that they can read other people. And she had us take magazines and put up pictures of when we feel like we're thriving, languishing, and burnout, right? And so like we had to kind of pick 2 pictures, and there were about a third as many pictures on the languishing as there were for thriving and burnout, because we know when we're done and we know when we're doing great. And it's very hard to tell what that little piece is before we're about to go off the thing. And burnout is scary because you really do have to stop. I have like a neighbor that just had to stop her career and take some time. She's got to get some help and stuff. So when we really truly burn out, it's bad news. And what we want to do is kind of make sure we're catching people when they're languishing and help them carry through that. And all this like cognitive load of this is a lot. Let's get into some of these stats. So when we talk about burnout, it's people are like, oh, it's like a personal failure. Like my neighbor felt really bad. She's in a great job and everything. And that they just needed better habits or more grit, or they should have had more boundaries and stuff. But it's not really the problem. It's a signal, and it's telling you that something is off. So when you're seeing that in your employees, when you're seeing it in your clients, it means that there's too much change and they don't understand why or what's going on. There's too much pressure and they don't really trust the system. And so it's like, I got to do all this stuff and I'm not sure exactly why. And then too many demands, but not enough recovery time. So I've got to change all this stuff and do all this stuff. And then now you're telling me I got to change all this stuff and do all this stuff, or I've got to now learn this thing. And it's hard for me. I mean, like I am an entrepreneur by myself. And if I have to create a lot of new things, that also means I'm going to fall behind in admin. I can't just like do all this new, like thoughtful work and then try to do all the stuff that's like tedious for me, and then go into like an operational planning meeting. And this is the kind of stuff that happens at work. And you're like toggling, and then you're keeping up with your one-on-ones, and then now it's performance season. So it's a lot. So this clarity, trust, and this recovery time because of capacity is what we're going to focus on today. So healthy leadership, clarity, trust, and capacity. Let's head in. Any comments about this though? Yes, after resilient, everybody's talking about resilience and grit. Agreed, they were. And I think the resilience is the right conversation to have. Grit comes from all kinds of things, and I could talk about that for 16 hours, but I'm not going to make you have that grit or resilience to listen to me. But yeah, we're going to talk about some of that stuff today too.
Yeah, but one comment I think I just wanted to say about that is that resilience and grit, like, yeah, people have it to show up during difficult times and make it through, but that's not supposed to be a permanent state of being. Once that happens, we need to give people enough time and space to fill those resiliency tanks so they're ready for the next emergency.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, in that situation, it was kind of a situation where it's like, God knows what's going on at home. Right. And there were a lot of people carrying an extra load that have a lot of different kinds of dynamics at their house. So you're like with that more. I know my house was out of control. So, you know, it was a lot. Very good. So let's get into this healthy leadership, and we're going to give you some tools. I'm going to frame what's going on here. We're going to talk about healthy leadership. It's going to be super fun. So what's changing? You're leading through a storm of competing pressure. So AI is accelerating expectations, which is totally happening, without reducing the complexity. So I need you to go faster, but things are still complicated. And I'll tell you, look at a tech company or a company that is a finance company or a company that's one of your retail companies, okay? And parts of AI might be able to go faster, but you've just hit with maybe tariffs. And so your business is very complex, and AI is not going to be able to fix all the things that you have to decision and do things. So one part of the chain of the process might be better, and AI might be accelerating maybe your customers or your inventory or things like that, but you have not been able to reduce the complexity of what's going on. In fact, it's becoming more complex, which brings me to my next point. Politics and market volatility and the things that are moving down are eroding people's focus. I have a coaching program, and my client can barely talk to me because she has so many retail companies that are under the umbrella, and she's doing a lot of the finance stuff. And they're, every day on the news, you're hearing, oh, well, now this is not going to be this, and this is going to be this, and they got to find a way to do that. And they can't be attached to the way things were emotionally. They have to like psychologically feel safe that their reports may or may not work or whatever's going to go on. So there's a lot happening here. And then organizations are layering change on top of change. Like, how are we going to bear this new storm of this market volatility? So let's boom, boom, boom. Let's do all this stuff. So leaders are supposed to absorb this uncertainty, calmly say everything's fine, here's the plan, and then keep people aligned. And then the leaders have to hold themselves together, right? Which is not sustainable unless we look at rewiring how we lead. So is this fair? Am I missing anything here? Is this kind of the picture of what's happening for us today? I could also make it like even more crazy, which is like the workforce is changing how they work, and we've got all these fractional folks.
I think it's a really good representation of what's going on, because it feels crazy. One thing calms down, something else is out of control.
Yeah, I actually cannot wait. I have such a wide variety of people that work in all these different jobs at my tennis club, and I cannot wait to hear what's going on with all of them. It's like more stories that I can hear across different industries. Media, all these places are really experiencing a lot. We don't have to read every word on the slide, don't worry. But I just wanted to say, like, the cognitive overload of like, tool, here's your new tool, here's your AI thing. This is how this works with this. I just heard a story at Microsoft where they, took Teams on, and then Teams just had like a new thing every single week that was like a new product and bells and whistles. Like, we have to turn this off. This is like freaking everybody. I can't take any more tools. And now you've moved around the screen and it's just too much. Like, I want to go into something and have it feel like the way that it always feels like in this time of pressure about something else in my organization. So tools are changing, people are pivoting, the directions are not clear, and people are struggling to find the information they need to do their jobs effectively. And then people are experiencing burnout due to not having the right stuff. And then all these platforms coming out without proper integration or training, and things are breaking. So just this part of like doing new stuff with new things is look at impacting people, more than half of the people. So, and then we have this resilience depletion. 2/3 of employees have experienced more change at work in the past year compared to the previous year, with a third undergoing 4 more significant changes, including the shifts in their team structures and their job responsibilities. That's from PwC, like right now. That's from a report that just came out in like the end of the year, January. We have lost more than 50% of our ability to cope with change after the pandemic as people. So like something happened, we all went home. And then now just look at what it's like to drag people back to work, right? People just can't do it. And that's the way things were for like the whole time. And then we did this one change, and it's just like, I cannot. Even with some of the career transition clients that I have and the people that I work with, they're like, I can't change all these parts of my life, so I got to work remote, or I don't want to go back into an office again, or I can't handle all this, but I feel lonely. It's a lot. People are dealing with a lot. And then, not just our kids are affected by what happened in the pandemic. Even we are, right? And so we're guarding ourselves a little bit. And then there's this emotional disengagement from change fatigue, too much, too fast, too often. And so we have 60% of their employees don't trust their employer to handle the AI change transparently. So some people think that their team is going to be like tricky. And then 36% of employees report high trust in their organizations, suggesting a lack of transparent communication during change initiatives contributes to emotional disengagement. So they might be okay, but when stuff shifts around, they're not sure what's going on. So they get disengaged. So they're not resisting change. They're resisting the chaos. I actually love the statement. It's like we're managing disorientation, and they're rejecting and resisting chaos. And it's taking the energy out of us. Just all this change takes the energy out of us, right? And what I wanted to say is why managing change is more important than managing the tech here is really, if we just, sure, the left-hand side, you can kind of skim that, but people need to have trust, clarity, and safety. They need this shared ownership. It's got to be absorbed gradually. So like the safety around AI And then the people part around AI has got to keep it a little bit more slowed down than AI wants to go. And I think that'll be the adoption issue that we have with AI and how quickly it works. It doesn't matter how quickly it works if we don't trust it to make a decision. So technology moves fast, but people adopt at the speed of trust, right? So this is like why this piece is important. And then lastly, what's happening with this change fatigue and how do we shift this to resilience? Because change fatigue is going to hinder us and it will make people feel overwhelmed. And it occurs when people are asked to do too much too quickly. Whereas if we shift over to resilience, this is people that have the capacity to recover from setbacks, adapt well to adversity, and continue forward in the face of challenges. That's what we're kind of looking for. And that's what's going to guide our transformations. We're going to need to do some specific things to make sure that people still feel like they can do this. I'll stop here. Any comments or questions about this? I see the comment from Prabha about leaders not prepared either. They're expected to be able to do this. Exactly right. And I actually really am gearing this to the leaders because they need to also have that personal resilience. And then they also need to be like kind of managing how they're doing it. They can't be like too busy to not do this the right way.
I just want to add that, where resilience is concerned, some people are lucky to have that naturally, but most of us have to learn to be resilient because we have to learn to be more self-aware. We have to learn to understand what our triggers are for stress. And, it takes time to develop that muscle.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And I think it's different stuff. And I'm pretty tough, right? And I'm pretty resilient. But man, I had my moments. And I definitely, there's like a classic. I mean, I didn't do it with today. And I almost put it at the end to tell leaders, like, check in with yourself. I just put in like a regular resilience wheel. But like what you're talking about is right. And I do bring this up. It's like, am I losing my temper a little bit? Am I like bringing my work home? Am I like being nice to my family all the time? Am I taking time for myself? Am I doing healthy things? Am I skipping stuff? Am I eating right? Like, what are the ways that I can start checking in just basic resilience stuff to make sure that I'm okay? And when I talk to leaders about like leading change, we definitely have a moment where we do that because you can't do this without that strength. And I think it's an important thing to do. And it's like, okay, yeah, I'm coming home. My fuse is a little short at home. That's a sign. What can I do? What do I need to change? Do I need to work out more? Do I need, to maybe to go somewhere, go to a workout and then come home? Like, what do I need to change? Do I need to see friends more? What do I need to do? So raising that hand. And I'll talk about this emotional landscape, and this is more AI driven here, which is AI is going to change. I mean, we could say it has the potential to transform the very nature of work, but it's just going to do it. And as it unfolds, we're going to see different kinds of workforces. We're going to see more fractional workforces, more gig work, more entrepreneurial stuff. Things are going to evolve. That means that businesses are going to evolve. If you're an underwriter and you now can put in a formula that can figure out the risk level, then you might be the person that figures out the risk level that spits out of the other side of the machine, or you're looking at the ethics of it, or you're looking at, the financial outcomes of that in a different way, and you're the one calculating those things. But the 70 underwriters aren't working as underwriters anymore. So what are you doing? Did you want one of those other jobs? How did that shift? Are you advising other people on how they could set up that AI, solution tool? So I can see where people are going to have now this like fear of displacement. That's going to be replacing from automation, but there's also an evolution, but you can't get rid of that fear, right? In the beginning. And especially if you don't know what's going to go on and you don't know these stories like the ones I'm telling you about how private, relationship management jobs evolve into, talking about M&As from, having to spend time on whether or not we'll lend you something. So there's a lot of ways that these things evolve, but people will have this fear, and that's emotional fear of loss of everything, losing my house, losing everything, disruption of the existing process. I got to learn a new way to do something. That gets exhausting. You constantly have to have a new way of doing things. I mean, think about like just getting a new app, and having it not be, have you ever, like, if you have an Apple phone, have you ever tried to pick up an Android, and like how frustrating that is in 1 second, or the other way around, right? So these skill gaps, and then this increased demand for like, oh, we've got a new way we're working, and now we're introducing these tools and stuff. This is like a cognitive load on people. I've got to, I can't just manage the fact that today is my like son's last day of his senior year, and it's really been a slog getting him through these last couple of weeks. And now on top of it, this new, company that I'm working with wants me to do my calendaring with this AI thing, and it wants to read my thing. And now I got to learn how to do it. I'm exhausted, right? So this cognitive load is constant. My tools are all changing. Everything is changing around me. So we need to think about that. And this can make you feel overwhelmed. This is like where this stuff comes from. Any comments about this? Anybody seeing and feeling this already?
One thing about when you disrupt existing processes, even when you're disrupting a process for a good reason, right? And working AI into a process is a good thing. But I think that if you don't spend enough time explaining the why and bringing people up to speed, because even if you change something small, like or something that might seem small to me is probably a better way to say it, like when I've cleaned up other organizations, they were doing everything on paper, and we made the transition to doing more electronic storage, electronic, you know backups and that sort of thing. That was a very difficult change and a very difficult lift for some people. So if you think about something just like that, where we're not involving AI at all, um, now I'm saying we're going to do that. AI is going to be involved. Now it's even a bigger lift. And I think that sometimes you don't realize how afraid people are of change in general, let alone now that AI is going to be a part of that change. And I think you just need to be aware of that as a leader, and be able to have those conversations, I think, with people to make them feel comfortable. It may take more than one conversation.
Yeah, a lot of great points in there. And what's complicated about this is like my friends that even work in AI, as they're really playing with these tools and doing things, they're saying things to me like, I built something. I can't believe how quick and fast it's working. I can't even change how I work fast enough to keep up with it. And they're in AI. That's what they do. So it's, even for the people that are at the tip of the spear and figuring some things out, there's so much they don't know, and they can't even keep their human selves up with what it can accomplish for them. So it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot. So I want to get through the impact, and I want to get through to the part where we talk about what we want to do. So we talked about the situation. We talked about what people are going through. If we don't intervene at that emotional and structural level, you're going to see the quiet quitting and disengagement. You're going to see the low resilience. You're going to see the top talent quietly disengage. And then when you're trying to move things forward, it's not going to go as fast, and you're going to lose a competitive advantage. I mean, this is how it's going to be, right? And so we've got to get people, in here understanding what we have to do to prepare people. So what can you do as a healthy leader? And there's a lot that we're going to talk about over the course of these 3 workshops, and I'm glad you all are here from the beginning. But the first piece, I think, in this component around dealing with this emotion and that change and the burnout is making sure there's clarity before there's speed. And Jill hit this point a minute ago. I think Prabha's hit this point. Gloria's even talked about it as like, what is the calm context? What are we doing here and why? And we need to do that before we start tasking people to run all over the place and go bananas, okay? And repeat what the priorities are for the company. What are we trying to do? Because when people don't kind of understand, well, I don't know if we care about that because I heard they're going to buy this tool and stuff, you're losing time and productivity. And your customers and your other people are already playing with AI and getting faster and smarter in their own ways. So we need to have that clarity. The second piece is we need to acknowledge change fatigue openly. It's a credibility builder. And we need to talk about the fact that this is hard. We need to build trust. Hey, this is hard. We're trying to figure out what we're going to do. We're going to try stuff, even though it's not perfect. And we're all in this together. That is what's different about every other tech thing in the whole history of time and today. Everybody's on the boat. So, this is going to be a different thing, and we need to trust each other and understand what we're doing. Lastly, managing these capacity and protecting people's energy, because when we're out of energy and we're irritated and stuff, we do not act well. Okay. So identify where we have this effort outweighs impact, and where we start setting limits on this always on pace. All right, so let's go. And the one other thing that I want to make really clear is, if one of these things slows down, like I don't trust the system, I don't know why we're doing this, I don't trust how the company's doing this, these are like gears. They're just going to slow everything down. So if we don't have clarity of where we're going, we don't trust what's going on, we don't have capacity, then we are going to slow down the whole system. So let's have some fun here. And for the coaches, you can kind of do this. I don't know how this is going to go. I'm trying to do this new thing, but if you can get out your phones and pull up this QR code, I think I have to click out of here to get the, oh, excuse me. I think I got to click out of here to get the live guy going, but it should work. Double click to make it live. And the other thing we can do is just go to it. Yes. So how clear? Did you all get do you need the QR code again? Oh, it's live in the thing now. Yes. Love this. I'm just trying this new Menti tool because I saw it down at Microsoft and I was jealous. We've got 2 votes. How clear is your team right now? Somewhat unclear, mixed clarity across team. None on a team now, so no answer, fair. Okay, so we definitely see that. I'm sure that this might create a little bit of a hill here, where people are kind of not always sure what we're changing and why we're changing it, and that there's mixed clarity about what's going on. And this is something that we want to watch out for. And here's the lesson for today on this clarity piece. People don't burn out from change, actually. They burn out from confusion, and they burn out from the chaos of it all, and people not knowing what they're supposed to be doing and why they're doing it. So what healthy leaders are doing are, I'm just going to use the word, over communicating, not just what's changing, but why right now are we doing this thing? Just think about like how kids are confused all the time. They're like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to clean my room now? We haven't changed much as people. Why do I have to do this now? Why do I have to do this now? And like, why is this important to clean my room? Guests are coming over, but they're not coming in my bedroom. And why do I have to clean the room now? It's like early in the day and they're not coming till tonight, right? We still have those things. So think about what healthy leaders are doing here. It feels stressful if it's year end and we're forcing something down people's throats. So they need to know why it's happening in that timing. Reiterate goals and the priorities all the time. As a coach, when I'm talking to my people about coming in and disrupting and changing, one of the things that I talk about is like when they have this like shared vision of what's going to go on and what's going to happen, start every meeting where you're asking a lot of people to make a lot of change. Start every meeting by saying, hi, what we're trying to do is offer the blah, blah, blah client offering to this, that, and the other. And today, the way that we're going to deliver that is 1, 2, 3. And today we're going to talk about number 2, and why we're doing that. So even if it feels repetitive, what you're actually doing is creating balance and consistency for people, right? And then lastly, frame the decisions very clearly in what's included and what's not included. So here's what we are going to try. So like, we're going to try AI, but we're only going to try AI inside. And actually, we're just going to use the accounting department as the department that's going to do that. And we're not going to include other people. And we're going to let you all know what the output is. And you can come to those meetings and hear about it. So making that too. Why that works, the science shows that ambiguity creates stress, and then you're going to lose time, period. Your brain is going to be in fear. And that's what other people were talking about too, is like when you're in fear, you don't operate properly. I've got a bunch of data on that too. Clear information reduces anxiety. Okay, I know what Samantha's going to do. She's going to come in there and say, here's the thing we're going to offer for the clarity mix, and here's how we're going to do it. 1, 2, 3. And then she's going to talk about number 2 today. Repeating key messages solidifies memory and trust, and employees know what to expect and where to focus. When we get busy, we frequently isolate ourselves. This cannot happen. You can't go hide in your office and hide in your meetings and stuff. You need to get that megahorn out and make sure everybody understands where they're going. It's like we're hiking up a mountain on a trail. We need to remind everybody why to stay on the trail. And in action, a healthy leader says, here's what's changing. Here's why we're doing this now. And here's not what's part of this. And let's walk through what success looks like. Any comments about this? Do you guys like this?
I think it's great stuff. I love one of the words you use, which is pace. It's, the whole world just needs to pace itself. And one of the fears I have is the leaders are going to take too much time to figure out their adoption plan, and then they're going to rush everybody.
Yeah. I put this in your handout, so you have this in your PDF. We're going to do a little exercise for a second, but these are things to think about. So it's like, especially for, coaches, but also these are great coaching questions for your leaders that you have. And then Marissa and Gloria, great ones for your leaders, great one for your HR team. I'd say that somebody brought up, Prabha brought up, like, leaders are not prepared for this. By the way, in HR and leadership and development, y'all are like frontline people too, because you've got to take on all of the pain and craziness and like figure out what you're going to do about it and how you're going to take care of them. So it's like, the leaders have to take on how they're going to hold themselves together from an, emotional intelligence way. You all need to be able to hold yourself together, and everybody's got to kind of have clarity here. So do team members fully understand what's changing and what's happening? We talked about that. Are the goals and expectations right? Do people know what they specifically have to do and how they're a part of this, right? And have you communicated the big picture? Where are we going? Like, we're going to Connecticut and we're going to take a car and we're going to need a map, and we're only taking these 4 people and nobody else is going. Jill's the driver, Prabha, you're the directions and navigation person. It's like, we have to be very clear on what's happening and what's not happening. And I think there's another weird thing here that it's not on here. But if you're not involved in those first AI things, you got to find a way to get, by the way, those people involved, because I used to work in innovation labs at banks and things like that. And it's like, that was always the special place. Those were the special kids. They didn't have to do like the BAU thing. We were experimenting and screwing things up and trying to figure out how stuff works, but people thought what we did was special and what they did was not special. And I think there's something very important here to say. Let's be super transparent about the people that are trying experiments. If it's going to fail, like talking about it, hey, we expect this to fail. Remember, 70% of AI experiments do not produce ROI. So they're not great investments. They're existential investments on how to start doing things a new way. They're not about getting your money back most of the time. I'm going to tell you right now, but I've heard 70 and 80 in the last couple of weeks, and I've heard them from big experts everywhere. So is this, so have you communicated the big picture? Do people feel involved? Do they know what they're supposed to do? And is this information about the change being shared openly? So we need to keep talking about it. So this is about over communication. The good news is we've got 100 tools now. Email, instant messenger. I'd also say, figure out what your tools are that you're going to go talk about this. Is there a Slack channel dedicated to AI experiments? Where can people go find information and learn? All right. So these are the clarity ones. You have this in your thing. And then this is kind of the game we want to think about. And even you coaches are probably thinking about something for maybe your business or something you might have for your business partner. And Jill, you can use an example for work. But I'd like Marissa and Gloria to really think about something just right now. What's something that's changing in your job? And for sure, something is changing. What's changing? We'll give you a couple of minutes on this. Why is it happening now? What does success look like? Do you know? What are you all not doing because you've chosen to do this thing? And how will you know you're on track? So what does it mean to win or know that you're on your way there? And how will this be communicated and repeated? So think about something that's going on now. Can you even fill out all these things about it? And there should be a space. I'll just pull out and show you the workshop sheet here. I think I've got it right here on this vision clarity exercise. Should look like that. Tell me, what was your experience kind of looking at this? Were you able to fill out everything? Were there things missing?
I can go first if that's okay.
Yeah.
Some of them I'm not sure, like number 5 on the thing, I'm not sure, but I'll run through it and
Well, I like actually more of where you're going with the thing, because I don't need to know the content. It's interesting. Number 5, we're walking into the dark in some ways. How
yeah.
do we know we're going in the right thing? So that's a great reflection.
Yeah, because we're trying to plan it out and trying to use a tool in the best way possible, because the goal is for the our coaches and our coachees to spend more time together, right? Working one-on-one. If there's a couple tools that we can suggest for them to be able to do that, and bring that information to the meeting and then review, so we're looking at a few things to see how it's gonna go. But one of the things I think we're struggling with is how do we keep it the way that it's supposed to be? How do we keep it where, it's still focusing on the people interaction, using it as a tool and not a replacement, because a lot of people think that these tools are going to be replacements. So, until we actually try it, it's difficult to know, like, how are we going to know if we're doing it right? And maybe we're worrying about things we don't need to. But it's better to be overly cautious, I guess. I'm not sure. So, but
yeah, and I think it's important, and I give this as a checklist because this is a great level setting before you start going through things. This is what leadership is talking about and HR should be talking about. And I'm going to say something very controversial now, which is boards are going to play a new role in that they need to protect the companies and the CEO and push back on people and push back on leadership to say, have you talked to your teams about this? What's your plan? Because this is how things will fail now, is the people part. In HR, you can be pushing your partnerships. I don't know what HR's leadership and development always has different kinds of relationships with their businesses. I grew up where HR was very tight with the business and really pushed back on the business on how they were doing things and what they were doing to people and human resources. So how can you go and pose these questions as coaches, as HR leaders, as leadership and development folks? How do you manage that? And so here's a way to look at that. Any other reflections here? Anybody have like a gap in, kind of how they're thinking about a certain kind of change? You feel like you're over communicating enough? Okay. We're going to do a trust check-in now. I'm going to put the QR code up here and we're going to move on to this next piece. And you have nice resources from this last one. Have fun with this. Well, it just happens. How cool is this? I didn't have to leave this time and it just starts working. Anybody else want to vote? Mine was high trust with some gaps. I'm not sure if everybody's is coming in here. Hold on one second. Oh, there we go. Nice. Okay. So this is good because it's a good place to start, is a place of trust. You know, one of the stats that I had on one of these slides was like, people don't really trust how their company's going to handle the AI stuff. And that's for many different reasons. Like, they're very traditional or other kinds of things, and they're not sure how they're going to handle it. So people don't need for things to be perfect. They need honesty, consistency, and to understand how decisions impact their work. So what do healthy leaders do? We share decisions in progress early enough that teams can ask questions and prepare. So we're like, hey, I'm thinking about this. So instead of that leaking out politically, we should be out there talking about it. Like, we should be acknowledging when change is going to affect certain kinds of jobs. So I've put engineers or strategists here, but like, when it's going to affect HR, when it's going to affect things that are outside of tech, what do people need to do, and how do they need to understand that? Because non-techie people aren't really always as comfortable with this. That's not fair to say all the time, but some of them are, right? We need to understand, have simple explanations about how things going to affect your day-to-day life, and then make room for every single person to be able to ask questions and be involved. Not just senior staff or the AI team or the tech people that are making those decisions. So the reason it works is that people want to know what does this mean for me and what's happening for me, no matter where I work. And that they feel that their voices and their work and their pace is being considered. And there's your pace word again. So it's not just outputs. It's also like, are you looking at what my life is like? Are you kidding me? Or are you going to make me do this? Because AI is not just a technical shift, as we know. And in action, what a healthy leader is saying, here's what this change might mean for how we do things. And if you're in this other kind of role, let's talk about what this is going to bring up for your team. And let people start to prepare. If you're having this conversation from the beginning, they can start thinking like, do I want to learn about ethics and evolve into this other role? Do I want to start being a person that understands this? Do I want to be the supervisor or oversight person? What do I need to learn to understand this? How do I dip my toe and partner now with somebody in AI so that I can start to, play with this? So it starts to wake people up because they feel it's about inclusivity and not exclusivity. I guess that's what I've been looking for this whole time. Any comments about this? All right, hopefully you like it. And then we'll keep going on here. This is something that I had around change, and I wanted to bring it here. Trust is also about, I think, these things, which is normalizing the fear. So I think it might have been Prabha that brought this up before, but like some people are just like afraid. It might have been Gloria. Some people are kind of like afraid to move forward and resistant. Normalize that. This is weird. The news is crazy. And you've got stuff that's about like deep fakes on, kids and inappropriate stuff. And then we've got like people making $500 billion deals. I mean, how much is that much money? Nobody can even think about that. And then we're just like sitting there writing like a 50th birthday speech. There is a big difference between this wild news that we're seeing and images that we're seeing and things, and then what we're just doing every day. And it's hard for us to imagine. So we're filling it up with our imagination and creating even more fear, right? About what's going to happen to our jobs. So say it's normal to be freaked out by this. This is new and different and very weird, and we're all learning it. Let's make it psychologically safe to figure this out. So emphasize, what is the reason that we would get involved in this? What's the narrative? Why would we care about this? So we're all lawyers, let's say. So we like to lawyer and be lawyering. So all the things we're doing that is not lawyering, like let's look at what we can do to like cut our administrative tasks. We can spend more time with our clients or spend more time, critically thinking. So what does that purpose and reframe look like? Build a culture of experimentation. That means it's okay to try something and stink at it or fail, but you learn something. And that's what really that's about. Providing training, building trust in that process that you can go out and try something or change something and it's okay. Celebrate the people that are being cool. Celebrate the people that are saying, I don't know. Celebrate the people who are like, I don't know what this means, but I'm willing to try. Those are role models, and they all look like different kinds of people right now. Okay. They're just like the people of like, all right, like put it on my computer. Let me give it a whirl. That's a role model. People that are, you want to leverage your emotional intelligence, especially as HR and coaches. And then I think this is like, kind of feeds fear, which I'm totally not into, but people do need to understand if you don't do something about this, you're not going to be relevant. So there's no like hiding from this. And I like the story is like, you might have your baby steps. And I see Gloria saying, start slow with the amount of risk. I think Greg's story from the beginning was a great story, which is, hey, we're not going to do this. Okay, we're going to do this on the inside. And so like, because if we don't do it, we know we're screwed. So they're doing something and they're doing it on the inside where they feel safe, and that's fine. And they're probably figuring out a lot. And a lot of companies are doing that. And we're all going to have to pivot to lifelong learning and anchoring ourselves in human beings, which is what this is all about. It should help us be more human because we don't have to do the tedious stuff, right? The trouble we got ourselves in with these computers in the first place. Any comments about this? Any of this resonating with anybody particularly?
This is Prabha. I'm just wondering about the organization itself. It just occurred to me that if the organization is already high on technology, then it's easy for them to incorporate this change going forward. I just want to, give an example of how several years ago I was working with the Metropolitan Council in Minneapolis, and 50% of the employees were in the age group of 50 years and above and hadn't even used a computer. And I'm just thinking that, it's all very well for the organization to be gung-ho about AI, but are they equipped? What have they done to equip themselves? What have they done to even just evoke awareness amongst people that these changes are happening and you need to, and also tool them up?
Yeah. I have so much to say about some of the stuff that you're bringing up, and it's awesome. And I also have things to say, like, I'm just going to tell you this. I was just at that Microsoft day, and you know who was there? A gas station, a plumbing company, and a flooring company, and a telecom company. I mean, I did not expect that to be the crowd. And they were like the crowd. They were like, we got to figure out how to do this. So it's amazing. And I think it is going to be different for people that are technically savvy. But even then, even people that are technically savvy, they're like, whoa. And like, well, how do I do this? And I don't know what this will do, because they can't use all that power. It's like too much gunpowder or whatever, man. It's like too much horsepower is the word I'm trying to look for. Too much horsepower. And they don't even know how that could be worked. And they don't know how their data could fade. And even good tech companies, like I worked for a bank, they got to organize their data. A lot of people were trying to organize their data in 2016. If you didn't do that work, even if your whole company's full of tech people that did all these workarounds in the background, AI is just going to amplify everywhere that you're a mess. And so they were going to have to go back and, slow down and realign their data and look at how they're doing, so they don't like amplify mistakes or like turn down everybody for a loan, or, cut off, I think the state of Tennessee, didn't give any prescriptions for anybody with Medicare and Medicaid. They tried to automate something. I don't think it was AI related, but it's like those kinds of problems are the kinds of things that come out. Okay. This is what I've put in your notebook, so you'll have this as a takeaway. And I think we have a high trust level here, but it's this piece that it's a check-in on yourself about whether or not, I would trust Jill to handle a part of the change that she's got to own, or am I going to need like a lot of overlap? So like, do I always fear that other people are going to drop the ball? I'm coaching in an organization right now where a lot of people don't trust that another person's going to prioritize the right things. Would your team members say that information about changes is communicated honestly and transparently from leadership? Or are they always like hiding something? Now, this is a direct order to HRs all across the world that if you've got these little problems, just like when your data's all messed up, this is going to amplify. People don't trust leadership. They don't trust these other things. It's going to get deep. Are team members comfortable with being vulnerable? And is the team experienced, has the team experienced consistent follow through on past initiatives? So do things like create a lot of work and then they don't go anywhere and then they repivot. So these are the reflections that I've given you. And I've given this little tool, and we have kind of a mixed audience today, but it's really about picking like, what specific change or initiative do we have? And what are the potential impacts to the areas below? So you can think about this for a minute if you like, but like, what tasks or routines will change? And I think, Jill, you even had something that you could almost apply, and we can kind of bring it into the group. Like, how will that change daily workflows? What platforms or software will be used? And how might that be affected if I rolled something out, right? Who might gain or lose responsibility? These are all things that talk about impact that we need to build into how we talk about things. What will people need to learn or unlearn? And how might service or collaboration shift? And what might feel confusing, exciting, or threatening? And we don't need to do this now, since I think we've had people kind of come in and out, but this is a great tool for leadership to have conversations with their next level down at an offsite or a kickoff. You're talking about the first thing that you're going to roll out. How are you like laying out all these different vectors? And you might even have vectors that you want to lay out that are beyond this. How are you looking at all these things? And how does that inform what, you know, the leadership and development team is going to roll out? And the leadership development team, you might want to push back on the teams and say, hey, before you roll this out, are you thinking about all this stuff? Because this is how we can lose trust. And so I've laid an example out here, but you can play with one where you kind of go through something that might be live and how we can do this. And then how deep can you go in your organization to have these conversations? Who can you involve? Can you involve many people or take a representative up and down the organization, talk about increasing buy-in by showing how the change is going to be considered? Like, so they are all bought in on what's happening. Everybody that should get impacted, somehow we should be starting to find a voice for them or an outcome or some sort of feedback. We're going to have to be our best humans for this, is what I'm trying to say. Any comments about this?
Honestly, Sam, one of my favorite points, I think, on the impact radar tool is what will people need to learn and unlearn? Because I think, of course, we have to learn new things. We have to learn new strategies, but we also have to be able to let go of certain things that aren't working anymore. And I think that's very difficult, even for people that are really self-aware. But I think that's one of the most impactful things on the impact radar tool, because I think it's something that you overlook, because you feel like you almost don't have to let anything go. How does that saying go? What got you here won't get you there. And I feel like that statement has never been more relevant, especially when it comes to AI. Like some of the other stuff, we need to learn from it, hold on to what we learned, but let it go.
When I think of somebody I've got right now in retail who's doing all this finance back end stuff, she doesn't trust the systems. And she's got to unlearn that. She's got to let go. She's got to put her, data in there, and she's got to create like a BA tool, be a business insights tool, and she's got to let go, and she's got to, kind of unlearn that control she feels because she's too slow. You can't have a human work in spreadsheets for 4 weeks, like every month. Like you just can't do that anymore. You're just not going to make it. And then you don't even have time to make foresights. If I could like look at all that work in 1 minute and then instead spend time on all my insights and leadership and mentorship and showing people how to make things from the ground up. And there's still people kind of missing here. I'm just going to move on to the one final one here and talk about how you would rate your team's capacity to absorb and adapt to current changes. Where do you feel like your teams are? And for you coaches, you can think about like, how is your overall clients? How are they doing with changes and adaptation to changes? This is cool. All right, so somewhat balanced, somewhat struggling. And so in our final lesson here, capacity is a strategy. This is about agility, and I'm not going to get deep into this because my whole last workshop is about this, and I really invite you to come to that. Because agility is like, there's IQ and then EQ became big when we started to have work with teamwork and collaboration. And now it's going to be about AQ. What's your agility quotient? Because stuff's about to change a lot and all the time. So what do healthy leaders do? Protect bandwidth by deprioritizing. You're going to put something on my plate, you're going to take something off. Okay. Or saying, don't do this until you finish this, so that we're not like killing ourselves trying to do many things at the same time. We have got to say no to certain kinds of urgencies, right? Things that are like, oh, it'd be great if you did this by here. And then check energy levels regularly. And this is those check-ins. How are people doing? We need to adjust expectations. Do we need to speak back up? Do we need to give transparency? And this works because burnout is related to this like lack of clarity and like all this switching contexts and doing those things. This is where change fatigue comes from, too much. So before we launch anything new, we need to assess what we're stopping or simplifying, because we're not going to win by just doing a million things and trying to carry all these groceries and push all these carts at the same time. It's just never going to happen. So I hope I'm making like a fun visual for that. It's going to kill you. So as we look in, I've given you some reflections here, which are about busyness. Are there signs of stress or burnout on the team? You know, having those check-ins. How's everybody feeling? Remember, we used to do that during COVID. How's everybody feeling? Now is the time to do that for the rest of your life, by the way. And then, do we have too many things going on? Are we saying no? Do members feel like they have the team members feel like they have the resources and support they need to like do their job? Or are they out trying to learn how to do something while they're doing something? You know, writing my first automation for an email took 8 hours. The second one took 5 minutes, right? So it's like, are they okay for that first time they're trying to do something that takes 8 hours? And overall, is your team in a state where they can embrace a new challenge? So they feel healthy? Are they like into it? Are they like learning and having fun? Are you making it fun? And I think that's a big piece. Any comments about this? And then I have this cute thing, and you guys have it in your piece, but I think like the important part to take notes on here is we've got low effort, high impact stuff. That might be a thing that goes in and deletes your files or does something like that. We've got high effort, high impact. Like, let's look at our whole entire hiring process. And like, let's look at where AI could maybe slim down how many, resumes are coming in, and how could we like, synchronize that and stop when, we have reached 100 resumes and then we have enough candidates to talk to and do all this stuff. That's a high effort, but that might be a strategic investment for us. We can let go of some staff. We can, re-put them into HR roles from recruitment roles, those kinds of things. So focus and fund those things. These low impact cleanup things, low effort, low impact. What could we do that fits on there for our capacity, and think about those things. And then I would say that this last one is like things that don't really matter. They're low impact and they're high effort. Do we really need those, or is there a small chunk we can do? But let's kill those projects that are about, kind of organizing big parts of our company and stuff that don't make any sense. So think about these things. And I want to remind you something big about it. And I've given you the chart to look at how you, excuse me, I feel like I've staved that off from the first minute of the call. So sorry about that. Really in the first minute, I thought I was going to go, and I can't believe I made it. Think about this. Think about plotting your things like this and what decisions might need to be made. And what I'd say is if you think this is low effort and it's an AI tool or something new, it is not. Because every time that you're doing something new like that, it's a new process, it's a new workflow, and people are going to need training, and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, why is this working like this, right? So it takes time for people to adjust to that. And they also need time to sunset the way that we're doing things. So asking yourself, if we're introducing AI here, what are we taking off people's plates? Because even if it seems small and simple, it's only because you understand it and they don't, and they need some time to do that. And I'll kind of finish with this. Think about where you're unintentionally rewarding endurance over clarity on your team. So like, oh, you're so resilient, you have so much grit. Prabha mentioned this, like people that do that, we think it's like this big personal venture. That's not good. Nobody should have to have a ton of that, right? Where in the organization is change happening faster than people can process it? And what conversations am I avoiding that might unlock trust, energy, or clarity? Okay. I've got 1 minute left. These are the workshop series. All you need to know is the next one's about upskilling and helping your people learn and helping you learn, and really getting into the psychological safety of learning, and also how you can make this all fun. The last one is going to be about one of my favorite subjects, which is about agility and prioritization. Okay. And know that you're not facing this alone. We got a lot of products and a lot of ways to bring these things into your organizations. Make it fun, a lot more fun than today, in fact, because it's much more inclusive and playing. And lastly, like, reach out if you want to have some deeper conversations with your organization about it. Any final questions or comments?
No, great job, Sam. This was a really interesting workshop. Really interesting.
Thank you. Thank you. And good luck. And anybody feel free, reach out with any questions. These guys know how to get me. And I'm also open to having, just 30-minute conversations about how things are going at your company and what might be a good place to just start having conversations. I run a really fun weekly AI forum at Chief, which is a women's executive thing, and people are teaching and stuff. It's great to go in and just teach people how to have those masterminds at your company, so you start creating a learning organization. We'll talk about that a lot in the next workshop. All right, perfect. Reach out with any questions. Thank you so much, and have a lovely weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.